was just in a mentality where it was just so dark, and I was just blaming God for everything. But
so you felt like in a way you kind of, because of the traumas, you closed your heart off to God for a time?
yeah, I definitely did. I definitely did. And I was so lost.
Yeah.
I was so lost. And yeah, it's, I was so wrong. And the fact that, we all have free will, right? That's what sovereignty, right? And it's just about, where does that line get drawn, where what is right and what is wrong. And it's like, when you impose, physical abuse, or you impose, assault, or, rape, or anything like that, that's wrong. You don't impose yourself on others, right? So the fact that I would always combat with myself when I was atheist is like, well, why does these things exist? Well, you can't control others, right? And you can't, God gives us free will, and some people unfortunately don't use it for the best reasons, but that's not God's fault. We have this energy in us that is so powerful, that can be life-changing in a good way or in a bad way. And again, it's our choice at the end of the day.
What's up, everybody? Eric Taylor, BigEAstro, back with another amazing Knowledge is Love Astrology podcast. Today on episode 320, I got a special lady for you guys. She is so amazing. She's an attorney. In fact, she deals with legalese, sovereignty, all the legal stuff, and I mean in a deep way, and so much more. I present to you Miss Yesenia Rose. How are you today, my friend, and welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Eric, for having me on. I am so happy and excited and thrilled to be here.
Well, the feeling is mutual, and truth be told, right, I and then my wife had been watching your Instagram channel, and you are just a fascinating follow, but at the same time, you bring the heat and you bring the truth. And I love it, right? Because you really deal with some third rail hot button topics that I think are so important for the collective right now. So I guess right off the bat, I want to ask you, because a lot of people don't know about our citizenship, our freedom, our laws. What does sovereignty or being a sovereign human or being mean to you?
Absolutely. That's a wonderful question. To me, what it means, and, a lot of people in the community will probably say the same, is self-governance, right? It's where you decide what's best for you. You decide, what you're going to practice as far as spirituality. You decide, what kind of food you eat, as far as like what toxins, because there's people that have all this food around us, right? And it's just full of toxicity. I mean, right? And it's like, sometimes, even though people are, quote unquote, voting for this stuff to get off, it doesn't seem to ever really happen, right?
Especially not in America, right?
Correct. So really just gaining, like, your power back, because a lot of it's been taken from government, basically government overreach, telling you how to grow your vegetables, if you can grow your vegetables in your house and your land. This is the people's land. And so knowing that that this belongs to us, and that, as long as you're not doing any harm to anyone else, there should never be any kind of permission needed to do something. So really just governance for the most part.
I love that. And that's so inspiring, because what I realize, a lot of people, they, through brainwashing, programming, just all the cognitive dissonance, all these things that we've been indoctrinated with in our lives, a lot of people don't even know basic, simple things in terms of what our freedoms and liberty and real truth is. So can I ask you a question about that? What's the deal? Because you hear all these stories and rumors, and I know you're the one to ask this. What's the deal with our birth certificates, right? I know this started sort of the early or mid 1900s where, you would just be born and there was like being registered, but then they came out with birth certificates. It was either in the 1920s or 1930s, but that's kind of tricky. What happens when your parents sign over a birth certificate?
So that is a very interesting topic and a very interesting subject. And a lot of people, um, it's really crazy because a lot of people have different views about it. But what I've collected through my journey in this journey, if you will, is that a birth certificate literally registers you with the state, the incorporated state, right? So
Mm.
like there's a birth certificate, if you were born in Texas, it'll say a birth certificate from Texas. And so you're literally, what happens is that when your mother gives birth to you and you end up having this birth certificate, and the way that I understand it is, I don't know if you have this or if you recall, or if this is what has happened with your kids as well, because I've gone through the system entirely, right? I'm trying to undo everything. And so they take the bottom of your baby's feet, right, the imprint, and they
Heel. Yeah.
and that's the soil, the soul, right?
Yes.
So that's the soul. So they imprint that, and you're kind of doing like an exchange, right? Where now they're taking control of your soul. Okay. And they're putting it into the market once you register that birth certificate. And what they're doing is like almost like a stock market exchange. And I know that it might sound crazy to some people, right? But but it's very, very deep, and it's definitely a subject that we can, dive deep into. And I can, you know what I like to do, and what I'm going to do, especially like on my channel, is I like to take people to the actual facts and not just word of mouth. Like, let's dive into this, and where do we see this from, right? So I know that a lot of people's birth certificates are being exchanged in the New York stock market.
Yes, because we're kind of like legally, we are kind of owned not just by our government, but by the Vatican, London, and DC, right? Which form their own kind of union, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes. So yeah, it gets very, very deep. And so your own. So you're owned in that aspect where they create this fiction of you, right? And it's like a bond for them. And you end up you end up creating this thing called like a straw man, where basically,
Yeah.
your all caps name becomes the dead entity that's circulating everywhere, which is on that birth certificate. And there's actually a registry number on your birth certificate. So I don't know, if you were to have your birth certificate with you, you would notice that on the top right hand corner, at least for mine, it shows a number. I've been told you can actually take that number and research it and see what it's circulating for. Now, I haven't got that deep, but I am going to get that deep. So,
Well, so that's funny. You're saying something really important because what I have heard and seen, and this is all kind of like in the rumor mill, but it does logically make sense that number one, we are kind of, excuse me, sign our kids off in the hospital, that we become a pair that rents the child. So par rent, right?
yes,
That we're renting our children back from the government once we
correct.
sign them over.
Yes,
And that sounds kind of like, whoa, what are you guys talking about? Dystopian and this and that. But it's that it's that heavy. But then
it is.
people have found and done research where they've said that with that straw man, the all capital of Yesenia Rose, Eric Taylor, that there may be in certain banks, and I don't know which ones, that there's bank accounts under your name where there may be like literally hundreds of thousands or $1 million, right?
Absolutely. So yeah, definitely. I know one for sure is Fidelity.
Okay.
So that one's for sure. I've had many people come back to me and say, this is the one that you need to go look at. This is where all the money is being kept and all of that. Now, has anyone tapped into that? I don't know. At that point, I kind of just, I'm going at it like, kind of slow pace, because I don't know if I even want to touch that. I mean, I do believe that it belongs to all of us, right? Because what the hell, because it's like, excuse me, you did what with my baby. So but I one is for them. And one lady, she saw, I believe it was like 50 million in there, or maybe 50 trillion. I don't know, because she's already like at the age of like 50 years old and has been circulating for so long. And so, it gets really, really deep in that aspect of that subject. But it definitely does exist. And to some people, a lot of people, would think that that's crazy. Oh my gosh, stock market and this and that and pair rent. But definitely you hit the nail when it comes to the pair rent, because you literally are giving your kids away when you sign them off on that birth certificate. You've given their soul. It's like up for, collateral, and now it belongs to the government. And now you're just kind of, renting them. Now the government gets to tell your kids what to do. So that way, if you don't go with the program, if you will, CPS gets involved, and then, you're not being a good parent, because
Ooh.
I don't know. And I don't want to get off subject or anything like that, but I don't know if you have heard, but this is one of the reasons I actually started homeschooling
Yeah.
a few years back, because, a lot of things were really crazy in the public school system, where they were implementing a lot of different ideology on the kids.
Yeah.
And I was not okay with that. And I don't know what states I passed through the states of California, but what they were trying to do in California, and I'm certain in a lot of other states, were that they were trying to implement it where, when a child had any kind of ideas of their sexuality or anything like that, and if they were to tell the teacher or the supervisor, the principal, whoever, that it was going to be confidential and between them, and they weren't going to tell the parent, right? And that if the parent ever found out or opposed, because they were pushing that they can actually start giving the children like the pills to kind of like change their, like, to give them testosterone or estrogen or whatever, without letting the parent know.
And that's just not cool. Like, and this is not even anything you guys to talk about being political, this and that. It's
Right.
just that no school
Right.
should do anything medically with your child without your permission. That's just basic. I mean, even aspirin, for goodness sakes.
Right, exactly. 100%. I know. And then can you imagine all this other crazy stuff?
Yeah.
So what they have tried to do is that if a parent opposes that ideology and not support it, if you will, then they have manipulated to the point where it's like you are actually neglecting your child, or you're actually,
Ooh.
yes. So then that's when CPS gets involved, because you're not doing what you're supposed to do as the parent. And
Yeah,
so
and I think each state may be a little bit different with that.
right, but that leads to like have one wonder, like, am I really their mother and father? And am I really being am I a sovereign, or am I being controlled by the government and having to tell me how to parent my kids?
Yeah.
Because if you can't have an opinion or a say in that, are they your kids? I mean, whose kids are they if you don't have the say over them?
Uh, Adios, mijo, Lucy. This is crazy, right? So, I mean, that is so wild. Okay, so, honey, let's bring it back, because I'm curious and I want to kind of find out from you when you sort of got into this and sort of had your spiritual awakening. But before we get to that, who was like young 10, 11-year-old Yesenia? Like, did you ever dream of all that you're doing now? What was your ideologies or goals? Like, who is young 10-year-old Yesenia?
I've been a mixture. I've been an introvert, and I've also been kind of like a big personality. Like once you get to know me, I have this huge personality. But when I was younger, I was more introvert and kind of quiet, and just kind of would observe everything. And so,
Well, let me pause you right there for a second, because I will let them know you are a Cancer rising, the Leo sun, and the Pisces moon in the ninth house. So yes, definitely the introvert, whenever the sun is below the horizon line, below the ascendant, and that's mainly like houses 2 through 6, it'll make you an introvert, but then you start to come more into your I am energy between 26 and 32. Did you kind of feel a little different somewhere in that pocket of range?
Yeah, I did actually. That's when I got married.
Ah, so there
Through
you
through the States. I
go. Right.
don't I don't recommend that.
Oh Lord, I hear you. Well, okay, so now go back ahead. I just want to give them your astrology. We'll talk more about that.
Um, but no, at 10 years old, I never would have seen myself. I know that a lot of people were like, oh my God, you're so quiet. But then they would get to know me. They're like, oh my gosh, you're like this big ball of energy. You should be an attorney when you get older. And I'm like, blah, 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 blah. You know, I was just so outspoken. But during my youngin days, I guess you would say, I was a rebel. I've always been a rebel, and I always felt in my heart what was right and what was wrong. And I did grow up in a household where it wasn't the best environment. And so by the time I hit maybe 11 years old, I actually was a runaway. And yeah, so I left the house. I started doing things maybe I should have not been doing.
Yeah.
But you know, it taught me street smarts, honestly, and it taught me, you know, how to survive out there, because it's like a jungle. I mean, I'm not where I was raised, it was crazy.
No, let's keep it real. That's, you know,
You know what I
and
mean?
thank God, right, that like you kind of had that protection over you to, you know, figure things out and to maneuver and make it on your own. And if you had to be honest and you think real deeply, you think that Pisces moon, which is like your emotional response and your eternal mind, were you always kind of pretty intuitive and psychic?
You know, I have to say that for the most part, every time I would get in prayer, because I prayed since a little girl. I was brought up in fake religion, and I always knew it was fake. I'm just
Yeah.
gonna put that out there. Just let's be 100, right?
Let's keep it real.
um, and I would always question everything. And I remember, you know, being in one of the churches that I went to, and they'd be like, "You can't wear earrings, and you can't wear, you know, lip gloss." And I'm like, "Well, who are you to tell me what I could do?" Again, there's the rebel, right? So they're like, "Well, God doesn't like that," and you know, God doesn't. And I'm like, "I thought God doesn't like judgmental people. Why are you judging me?"
Well, see, and that's what people don't get. Like, first of all, you're a Leo. Leos are like, excuse you? And then your Pisces moon in ninth house, you're like, me and God got our own spiritual connection going on. So you don't know what I'd be talking to God about, right? Like,
Correct. So I've always allowed the spirit in me to lead. And I
mm,
feel like, you know, sometimes it would never lead me the wrong way. But I would just be so compassionate for others and empathetic that it would get me in issues, because I was just thinking that I can change people. And I feel like that's not the way to go about it. I've learned to how to, you know, manage it, and the light that I carry
that's
inside,
not your job. You can't change
right?
nobody.
No, and so I've learned that, you know, the hard way, where it's like I cannot change anyone. People have to want to come to learning and being open minded, and so but yeah, I've always been led by the spirit. It's always when I go against it where I'm like, no, I can fix this. I can change people, where it's gotten me in trouble.
Well, honey, I want to point something out in your chart that kind of like shows that, right? So what's interesting, you guys, I mean, Yesenia is Pluto Scorpio generation, right? The I mean millennial, also known as Gen Y. But you've got as the Cancer rising, you've got the Saturn, Neptune, Uranus, and Capricorn in the seventh house. And so not only does that make you kind of very spiritual in the marketplace, another half, but that Neptune, sometimes you can deal with being a little idealistic or unrealistic in relationships with the other half. And that's where you may try to change them or see someone not so clearly.
Mhm.
have you kind of experienced that type of stuff a lot in life where you were kind of like, oh, I thought this person was that, but they weren't?
Yes. I
Yeah.
And but the thing is that I already knew when I
Mm.
first knew them. And it was just me combating myself, like, no, it's not like that. And so it was just always me fighting fighting
Fighting
against.
yourself internally?
Yeah. And so instead of just letting the spirit lead me. And
Yeah.
so now that I've allowed that more, it has taken a lot of work for me to kind of let go and let go of the control, because I was like, I can change them. What do you mean? And it's like, yeah, that didn't end well, did it, Yesenia? And I'm like, no, it didn't. Let's go. Let's have it your
But
way.
see, I love that, right? Because one thing that I say to my audience and clients so often, you know what the hardest thing for human beings to do is? A couple of things, right? One, to say, I'm sorry.
Mhm.
And two, to like really admit to being wrong
Right.
or apologize, right? Like, think about how many human beings are so fixated or so stubborn that they can't even admit that they were living life wrong or making the wrong choices or wrong decisions. But that's where our superpower comes, right? So it's very important, but it's hard for people to say, I'm wrong, or admit to their mistakes or live that they've been living life wrong. And that's really powerful because when we can get uncomfortable and make these changes, that really brings us closer to God. You know what I mean? So I think that that's powerful that you kind of, even at your age now, that you've come to this realization, right?
Absolutely. I feel like that's the whole, like, that this is how you learn. This is how you forgive yourself for the wrongs that you've done, the mistakes that you've done, and then how can you be better? How can you be better than yesterday, right? How can you learn from the mistakes that you have done? And I feel like if I hadn't learned, to be like, okay, I actually went against, my inner self, and how do I not allow that, then it would be like the same cycle would just continue to repeat itself, because I wouldn't be acknowledging that, there was something that I was doing wrong. You know what I mean? So it's, you have to be transparent with yourself, and I've dealt with sad issues, like in my family, if you will, and where, things happen and continue to happen until this day. And it saddens me, because I come from a place where I just say, and again, I have to let go and let God, so I can't allow it to, like, take me overtake me like I have in the past. So I just, say, do you do you want to be like the people that are bringing harm to the world, or do you want to be someone that brings peace and serenity to this world? Because if
Mm,
we act like if we, like, let's just say, for example, if somebody was abused when they were little, right? And then they continue to, because they were abused, now they're going to abuse somebody else or whatever, because
right.
they,
You have to break that cycle. Yeah.
yeah, you have to break that cycle, because it's like, well, you were abused when you were little, and now you're abusing others now that they're little. Do you think that that is a cycle that you want to continue, that you did not like when you were growing up?
Right.
Or do you want to be the change that the world needs, and, or,
Right.
so it's just really, really just being honest with yourself, and, yeah, allowing God in. And a lot of people, sadly, I've been told I don't want nothing to do with God, and I was an atheist in the past, so I can
Oh,
relate,
wow.
because a lot of things have happened to me, and I was just in a mentality where it was just so dark, and I was just blaming God for everything. But
So you felt like, in a way, you kind of, because of the traumas, you closed your heart off to God for a time?
yeah, I
Yeah.
definitely did. I definitely did. And I was so lost.
Yeah.
I was so lost.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's, I was so wrong. And the fact that, we all have free will, right? That's what sovereignty, right? And it's just about, where does that line get drawn, where what is right and what is wrong. And it's like, when you impose, physical abuse, or you impose, assault, or, rape, or anything like that, that's wrong. You don't impose yourself on others, right? So the fact that I would always combat with myself when I was atheist is like, well, why does these things exist? Well, you can't control others, right? And you can't, God gives us free will, and some people unfortunately don't use it for the best reasons, but that's not God's fault. We have this energy in us that is so powerful that can be life changing in a good way or in a bad way. And again, it's our choice at the end of the day.
Yeah, no, definitely. We are so much more powerful than we can ever imagine. And then when we find our real connection to God's source energy, then we could really almost become unstoppable when we have that real authentic connection to God. So let me ask you this. What's the difference between, because I know we've got like God's law, which I think is considered more common law,
Yes.
versus maritime law, which is what they do with us in terms of like the currency.
Right.
So it kind of explained, like, because we're trying to be more on God's law, right? Common law compared to maritime law, right?
Right, absolutely. So maritime is a lot to do with the waters. So if you ever were to Google maritime law, you'll see some like attorneys, helping people that work like on the shores, right? But the whole way that the court system operates is off of maritime law,
Yes.
because it's all about commercial. Everything is commercial in there. And so when you do the whole birth certificate, all the straw man, the all caps name, that is your commercial name that they can now bond you with, commercial statutes, their policies and all these other things that they are not supposed to be doing to a living human, because no living human is actually subject to anyone. So that would be common law versus the maritime law, and that's kind of how a lot of the court systems work, which is commercial and maritime, which is the same, in the court system.
So now your business, or your sort of ministry, and I love that, right? Freedom codes. Tell everybody, like, what type of stuff do you work with people on? I know you talk about our freedom to travel, right? So give us an example about, you're in a car and traveling. What's that about? Because most people think, oh, if a cop pulls me over and I get a ticket, I've got to do this, this, and that. But there's some things that are kind of like unknown to the masses, right?
Right. So it's funny. I actually have an Instagram on just that subject, where I got pulled over and I was like, "Are you detaining me, officer?" And he said, "Yeah." And I was like, "Oh, wow. What did I do?" He's like, "You broke the law because you don't have a sticker on your car." And I'm like, "Well, it was a registration." I'm like, You got to be kidding me, because I don't have a sticker on my car." So, rewind a little bit, right? Is
Right.
that so there's that, the right to travel, right? So when you're operating a motor vehicle, that is what's known as a commercial vehicle. Okay. And so a lot of times when you hear cops or the court system, the judges, "Oh, well, you were operating a motor vehicle. Oh, well, you're operating a motor vehicle." Yeah, that term in legalese means you're operating in commercial, and that you're actually getting paid, right? A lot of people don't understand that, you're paying for registration, you're paying for the smog, you're paying for this, you're paying for that, and you're not even operating in commercial. You're probably just traveling just to go get your groceries, or just to go to, a show or whatever privately. But here you are paying all these fees because you think you have to. And they're not going to tell you that you don't have to, because that's not going to benefit their
So you're
corporation.
saying that in a way, that whole process, they're kind of violating our sovereign rights?
Absolutely. 100%.
Ooh.
100%. And so basically, so when you know the difference, so when you were to, if you were to get pulled over by an officer, and the thing is that a lot of officers don't know this, because they don't get taught.
Yeah.
You have to remember is that they're also I don't know if that's the right word, but it's the word that comes to my mind is that we've all been brainwashed into thinking this is just how it is, and that you're just told what to do, and that's just how you have to do it.
People are just following the orders of their job. We're all kind of in cognitive dissonance and the programming,
Exactly.
right, of our subconscious mind and our society and world. Yeah.
Yeah, so a lot of the cops that are like, I guess at the bottom of the
Totem pole.
yeah, because there's the chief, there's the sergeant, the lieutenant, all that,
Yeah.
right? So the police officer that just stops you, they're just trying to make their quota. They're just being told what to do. They don't know. Like, you see someone with a sticker from last year, boom, they broke the law. Go give them a ticket. So they're not really, being educated on what the Constitution is,
Okay.
or what the rights of the people are. They're just told, like, obey what we say, and then you make them obey what we say, right? That's kind of how it's going. But yeah, definitely, everyone has the right to travel. Where if you're in a private capacity and you're operating an automobile, if you're in an automobile, not a commercial vehicle or a motor vehicle, it's all about wordplay. And basically, you don't need to be paying for registration. So I actually have private plates, and I also have dot plates, which is some plates that you get from Department of Travel, which basically in there it tells you, and you get this from the United States Travel Department website. It's not
really?
Yeah, it's not something I'm making up. So you can actually go look at that. And you go in there and you let them know you're not carrying passengers for any kind of commercial reasons. You're not, being compensated for anything like that. And so because of that, they tell you basically, oh, okay, well, here's your dot number, and you're traveling privately, right? So you don't have to pay for registration. You don't have to pay for any of that. And it actually tells you don't even have to pay for insurance, because
Really?
yeah,
What about a driver's license?
you don't have to have a driver's license, because a driver's license is almost like a business license, right? A business license is because you are generating some kind of income through the business. A driver's license means that you're operating in commercial, so you are needing that driver's license.
So if I'm not shipping goods,
Correct.
like selling meat to like Walmart or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Then I don't need the driver's license. I'm not commercially using my vehicle. Is that what you're saying?
That's exactly what I'm saying. So
Wow.
that's exactly what I'm saying. So what people use instead is a passport, right? So passport, you can use that. That's identification. You can use that with you for whatever travels that you have, that you're doing.
The full-fledged passport, or like the because
you can
there's
use the card, or you can use the full-fledged passport.
okay, because I forgot the other term, that like the
book, the passport book.
Well, no, because I think that isn't there two versions of the passport? I always get confused. My passport, ran out, so I'm getting it, updated. But I think there's like the passport card or the passport book.
Yeah. So yeah, the card or the book, you can use either or. I never ended up getting a card, which I'm updating my passport now.
Yeah.
And I'm actually going to be requesting a card, because I want to have both, so that I don't have to travel with my book, because
Right.
you know what I mean? That's more for
And if you didn't use that, what about the actual birth certificate? Could that be used for traveling or no?
No, I think that people want to stay away from that birth certificate.
Right. That's kind of like, that puts us in the straw man, right? So we don't want to.
Correct.
Okay.
So what people do usually, when they get a little bit deeper into all of this, is you actually go and get that birth certificate authenticated by a federal level and a state level, to basically tell the system that you're actually going, away from the United States, and that this is, the United States property, if you will, or that it's, it's a real copy, but that you're the owner of it, and you're just, using it at your leisure, if you will. So
does that when you're doing that, and I want you to explain that, is that becoming like a national?
Correct. Yes.
Okay, so then you're saying, explain that again for the people, because we go to the federal government or the local?
No, you go to both. So you go federal level to get it authenticated, and then you also get it authenticated by the state level. So that way, you're no longer a United States citizen. And what you do when you want to get,
because that's a corporation.
Correct. Yes.
See, a lot of people don't know that, right?
Oh yeah, I don't know if you know about the 1871 Act of the District of Columbia. Have you ever heard of that one? You have.
Yes.
Okay, so that's kind of when it got incorporated, right?
Okay.
And that's how the District of Columbia came about and started using people to be a subject to them and be part of this corporation, if you will. Because
Okay.
I don't live in the District of Columbia. Do you? I
No, but I just
Where's the
heard
District of
recently there's rumors that our current president is changing it from the District of Columbia to the District of America. Did you hear about that?
I have not. I think, and this is just my opinion,
Uh,
right? Is that the president of the United States is the CEO of the corporation. So
yeah.
I don't even pay attention to what they say
Yes, of course.
because it's almost like a way to play
Distract us.
good cop, bad cop,
Yeah.
right? And so one way the Democrats, oh yeah, they're for us, the people. Really, they're not. Okay. And then there's the second one where it's like, oh, they're religion and all this other, stuff, and they're for those people. And now you just have people divided. Yeah, now
Well,
you
that's the whole objective, right? Divide and conquer, have you liberal versus conservative, Democrat versus Republican. And to me, I'm like, wait a minute. We've got third world countries that have more than two parties
correct.
and have election day like on more than one day or on a weekend where people don't have to work. To have an election day where you only have two parties and it's the first Tuesday in a pretty chilly month, November, it kind of means like we don't care what the people think. That's how I view it. You know what I mean? It's
Well,
kind of
let me tell you a funny story about this. So, well, this is gonna blow your mind because when I started going through this rabbit hole, if you will, it started off in 2020 when the whole COVID thing hit,
yeah,
right? And I ended up getting terminated from the job that I was working at because I refused to take the
right.
the vaccine or whatever. And so I this is when I started like just diving into everything. And so all I heard, and I remember Donald Trump. Okay, so I'm not going to say he's 100% a crazy guy, but he was part of my awakening. I'm going to say why. Because when I would hear him, because I would hear the news all the time. I mean, that's what was on repeat, and everybody was just at home, right? It was just fear mongering, fear mongering.
Yeah.
And
Faith over fear, people. That's what I always say.
yes,
Faith over fear.
exactly. So I remember him saying, I would hear him here and there, fake news, fake news, fake news, fake news. And I'm like, I never questioned it, right? I always just went with the program.
See,
But
wait, I got to tell you something. That upsets me because I knew the news was fake way before he ever said that. You know what I mean? But I didn't coin that phrase or whatever. So plenty
well,
of folks already knew that
he
the
did
news
wake
was
me up a
fugazi.
little bit. He did. I'm not
He
gonna
woke a
lie.
lot of people up, I think, with that.
Yeah, because I pass through the territories of California, like I mentioned, and it's very heavily, heavily, heavily Democrat here. And when I was hearing the news and I was listening to the government and the officials or whatever, oh my gosh, I don't know where you're at, but it was like chalks to my ears because it was like the like like that, because when I would put on the news, it was like, and you better stay home and you better not come outside. And if you know what's best for you, and I'm
Right.
like, oh my God. I'm like, not even my mother talks to me like that.
Yeah,
You
no, it's unfortunate. And I guess the safest and cleanest way to say it is that there's been a lot of programming and a lot of things that have happened to all of us since 2020. But I think to be honest, it's been going on forever. I
Mhm.
think it just intensified, right?
Yeah,
If we're really being honest and we thought and looked back, it's all it has is just been like this like little ant that grew up to be a dinosaur and just grown over the years.
absolutely. I think it's just history repeats itself, right? And so the new generation is coming out and being awakened to it, because as little kids, you don't really know. You're kind of like a product of your own environment. You just know what you know around you, and that's all you kind of know. And then when you finally start walking alone, well, you're never alone because you're always with God's always with you. But when you start walking the walk without a lot of people around you, you start to get that vibe and that feeling where it's like, something's not adding up here, and that doesn't sit well with me. And so that was one of the things that did not sit well with me. It was the demeanor and the message that was being given to the people. And I'm like, why do I feel like I'm being talked to like I'm in trouble? Like, why does
Right, and the energy behind it, you're right, yeah.
energy? And then all I would hear is Donald Trump, fake news, fake news.
Oh my God.
So I was like, I need to get to the bottom of this, because I've always, have gotten to the bottom of a lot of things, and that's what a lot of people have mentioned to me. Like, you need to be an attorney because you get to the bottom of everything. And, people will be like, oh, you just love to fight. And it's like, no, I love to get to the bottom of the truth. And I want the truth to always be exposed. And that's what I get to the bottom of. What
Right.
is
The truth is extremely important. You're right. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So, and if it comes off like I'm fighting, it's like, no, I'm not fighting. I just want to know the truth. I mean, we all deserve the truth. What's wrong with me looking for the truth? So, it got really, really, crazy around that time when all that was happening. But yeah, no, Donald Trump was definitely the one saying fake news to me. And then I went to I became a volunteer at the polls. And so what happened was I started noticing the scam in the polls, right? So I remember he would say, there's a bunch of like fraud happening in the system, and there's not the real votes aren't coming through and all this stuff. So when I went to go volunteer at the polls,
This was the 2020 election?
yes, when I went there, I remember going in. And I was like, hey, I'm here to volunteer on behalf of the GPO party. And they were like,
The GOP?
Sorry, GOP.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, okay, just wait right here. And then I said, okay. Well, in my head, I was like, well, while I'm here, I'm gonna vote, right? So I was like, okay, well, I also wanted to vote in person. And they're like, okay, what's your name? And then I gave them my name. They're like, what's your address? And so I gave them my address, and they're like, you already voted. And I was like, no, I didn't. What do you mean I already voted?
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
That's wild.
Wild, right? And
nothing like that's ever happened to me. Like that's and that would make any of us, rightfully so, be like, wait a minute, right?
100%. And then I was like, well, you just give me 1 second. Here's I'm digging into my purse, right? And I'm like, here's my ID. And they're like, oh, no. We don't want to see ID. We don't see ID here. I'm like, what? You don't want to see my ID? And they're like, yeah, we don't need to see your ID. And I'm like, to me, I thought that was like mind blowing, right? Because I'm like, well, how do you know who I am, right?
Yeah.
So,
and how do you know that I already voted? What proof do you have?
exactly. And so they're like, if you want to fix your vote, you could fix your vote. And then I was like, okay, but let me get this straight, right? Because I'm thinking like, hold on, let me get to the bottom of this truth, right? So I'm thinking like, if I fix the vote right now, supposedly, and I'm fixing this, right? Who is it to say that if someone comes after me in line and claims to be me,
Oh my God.
and you guys don't see no identification,
Right.
you guys just change it all over again? I mean, I was like, what a hoax. I'm good. No, thank you. I don't even want to be part of this.
Well,
I was like,
and Yesenia, you're speaking to something that I think many human beings and Americans have questioned for years. And I would say, honestly, this isn't something new that started in 2016 or 2020 or 2024. We always, you remember back to Gore versus Bush and this and that they stopped counting our votes because of the hanging chads right in Florida. And I remember the night of that election, I was working on a TV show in New York City. and CNN had declared that Gore had won Florida, and everybody on set was clapping and happy. And I said, "Why are you clapping?" They said, "Oh, they said Gore won Florida." And I said, "No, no, 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 no. You don't understand." And they're like, "What are you talking about?" I said, "It doesn't matter what they're saying on television." I said, "There is no way that the governor of Florida, Jeb Bush, is going to allow his brother running for president, George W. Bush, to lose the state of Florida." I said, "I don't care what has to get done. There's no way." And they were like, "What are you talking about? CNN already, but see, I was already awakened in that sense way back then. And lo and behold, I was proven correct,
Yes.
like always, but people don't like to listen. We just, and what's so crazy, they literally, I don't know if you remember, because back then you may have been a little bit younger, but they just stopped counting after a while. When they were doing the revotes and recounting, they got to a point where they were like, "Oh, we're looking bad on the world stage, but let's just stop. Bush is the president." And I was like, "Whoa, whoa, 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 wait a minute." Because I think Gore really won that election.
Right. Yeah.
But they changed that thing. They went against what they initially said. And then all of a sudden, votes started missing. This started happening. This started happening. This happened in this county, in Dade County, Miami. And I was just watching this, and I'm like, and I don't know if you remember the documentary that Mike Moore did, and he was showing it, and they didn't show it on the news. And this is another thing to show you how the news lies to you. That inauguration, there was protests all through Washington, D.C. and Maryland. You didn't see that on the regular news.
Right.
Of that, inauguration and stuff. And, it's just unfortunate. But, I think more and more people each day are kind of awakening spiritually, but also awakening to our system and the flaws in it. Right. And that's part of the Pluto Capricorn that we just ended. And now we're in Pluto Aquarius. Right. The structures and systems have all been dissipating, whether it's political, whether it's medical, whether it's entertainment. And it's Pluto Capricorn was sort of destroying all those structures so we could see that they haven't always been to our greatest benefit. So what in terms of, so I want you to share what services you offer and how can people reach Yesenia Rose?
Absolutely. So currently, I'm working on so many things right now. I actually am partnering up. I just had a call with an amazing individual. He is someone I'm going to introduce on my YouTube. But we're going to be basically helping people with how to set up your trust.
Okay.
How to have a irrevocable trust, right?
Yep. Family trusts are so important. I've got one.
I think that's so important to start with, because it's like, this is where you put all of your, your kids in, your family. How do you expect your family to be ran? Where's all the land and the property that you're gonna,
and life insurance is very important. Those policies,
everything into this trust, where the government will have no overreach, and it's not due or subject to any statutes of limitations or any kind of it is completely private. And and also guiding people into knowing what happens if the government tries to trespass against your trust, because I forget the code, I don't know it from the top of my head, but there is a specific code that if any government, United States of American government, tries to trespass on that trust. So like, let's say you have your child in that trust and they're trying to tell you what to do with your child. This is just an example. They will be trespassing if they continue to test you and your, you as the parent, the real parent of the child, where it's up
which is why you should have life insurance policies on your kids.
Right. Exactly.
And then have it in the trust.
Yes. And so that penalty for them is $100 million for trespass.
What?
Yeah. I have all this stuff, into play.
Okay, wait. Give them all the information: YouTube, website, social media. Because I know people hear this thinking like, "Ooh, I got to talk to Yesenia."
Yeah. So definitely. So my IG is _Yesenia _Rose.
Okay.
And my YouTube is Yesenia Rose, and then it's Freedom hyphen Seekers, because Seekers was already taken, so it's with a Z at the end. And I'll give you everything. I don't know if you can maybe link it below, but then
Oh yeah,
also,
everything is going to be in the description, you guys. But yeah, definitely.
and my website is www.freedom-codes.com. My email is hello@freedom-codes.com.
Okay.
And you can definitely reach me there. I have, consultations that I help people, because it all really depends on what people need help with. I collaborate with so many people. Like if you're trying to have a baby, or a baby's on the way, and you don't want someone, you don't want to have the baby in the hospital, and you don't want to have that baby where they're going to have a birth certificate and a social security number, but you still want to benefit from because you have to remember that the passport, because that's how they tell you, oh, that's how you can get a passport, is with a birth certificate. You can still get a passport without a birth certificate and a social security number, just so you
Oh,
know.
really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I actually work with a wonderful woman who just specifically is on that topic alone, on how to help incoming mothers, not have their kids in the system, and does a
Because a
whole,
lot of people use midwives and doulas to have home births, which I
yeah.
think is beautiful and very smart and natural. Yeah.
Right. And not have to register your kid to any system. Right. But still they'll have their sovereignty intact, and then they'll also be able to benefit and know the difference between the two. You'll be able to get your passport so you can travel wherever you want to travel, and benefit from that, and still, remain with your full intact rights as a sovereign, where
Mm,
you're never in the system. You know what I mean? You're just not in the system. So you're not under their
wow.
kind of control, if you will. So I work with, a woman with that. If anyone's interested in that, they can contact me. I can put them together. Status correction, right to travel.
You deal with debt stuff as well?
I do deal with debt stuff. So I I'm actually getting ready to file my stuff. So I dealt with 12 different debt collectors myself. And yeah, so when my ex had left, I was kind of burdened with, he helped somewhat with the finances, and, but it wasn't the same as helping when he was here, with his finances. And so I ran up my cards, for groceries, to take the
Yeah.
kids out and stuff like that. I maxed it all out. And then when the bill came, I was like, I don't know what to tell you, but it's either the roof over my head with my kids, or what,
I'm
you
just
know,
a mama trying to survive here, player.
exactly. And then you get deep into like learning that, the debt is really not even your debt, because, back in 1933, the gold was taken from the people, and then it was promised that we were going to be taken care of once they took all of the gold, and that hasn't been happening. So
Yeah,
it's
return
all
on the
about,
gold standard. Yeah.
right. So it's all about correcting the status and the record, so that you can actually get some kind of redemption with having, the debts be the liability of the government, once you know your role in the in this, right, as
So,
far as like status and everything like that.
okay, let me ask you a question about that, because one thing that I had heard, and you hear these things, and I don't know if it's true, but that, let's say there's a medical bill and
Mhm.
they send it over to a debt collector. You're not in contract with this organization. And
No.
so in some way, right, you don't really owe them anything. They've purchased that debt from the doctor's office, but
Hmm.
you've never gone into any contract with them legally, right? So when they call you, what should a person do?
So what I've told my clients and my people that follow me is that you always want to make sure that you respond. I don't like answering phone calls. I don't answer phone calls unless I know I'm going to talk to you. So if they call me and they're like, we're calling, to collect a debt, I'm like, don't call me again. That I'm just very stern. Don't call me again. Okay. You're not wanted here.
But does that end that?
It's supposed to. And if it doesn't, then, then you can start journaling down something where, okay, they called you, on March 26th at this time, and it was from this company, and you asked them not to call you, and they still called you. That's $1,000 on under the statutes and policies. that they owe you for harassing you. So if they
Really?
call you, yeah. So if they call you like, multiple times every day, or every day they call you, then you just start journaling it down so that you can create something that's called a fee schedule. But what I do, because I don't like going through all of that, but that's something that you can definitely do, is that I wait for them to send me a correspondence, because everything that's on paper is what matters, right? So once you get a correspondence from a debt collector, you pretty much just send something back, and you send it back certified mail with return receipt, because a return receipt is proof that somebody signed off on it, received it on their end when they got it. So they can never say, oh, we never got that. No, you
Do you have
got
to write like paid in full on it or something?
it. No. You don't have to write paid in full. No, you ask them, um, can you please verify this debt with my original signature with your company? Right. And so there's actually a case, in case anyone wants to get familiar with this. It's Hinkle versus Midland. And Hinkle versus Midland was in the same situation. Midland is like this huge corporation of debt collectors, right? And Hinkle was the woman that was fighting these debt collectors. And so she asked for a verification, and they could not, because they cannot give you the
Because you
verification.
never signed anything with them.
You never signed anything with them. You don't owe them anything. It's like me coming to your door and saying, hey, Eric, you didn't pay this bill and I paid it for you, and now you owe me. And you're like, shut the door on me, like, get out of town. No one told you to pay that bill.
I never asked you to do that for me, player. Homie?
Correct. Exactly.
Shawty?
Exactly. So,
Wow.
that's the way that you go about it. And, what I want to do. So there's so many ways you can go about this. I have a good friend, his name's Kafil, and he says, what you can do is file for bankruptcy chapter 7 and just get all that stuff off of you, and not deal with the harassment or anything like that, and then just start new. And a lot of people use bankruptcy chapter 7 after they buy homes and after they buy these luxury cars. That's just one thing to know, that people actually do this so that you can buy your house and then discharge it or go bankrupt, and now put that into your trust. And now you've just collected
So the
profit.
bankruptcy does what?
It basically, you've gone bankrupt. There's no way that you can pay it back, but they can't take you out of it, because now the government has to basically settle on that matter and how it's going to be,
Is this why all these billionaires always declare bankruptcy?
100%.
Wow.
It's a business tactic. So that's how they collect so many properties, and then you put it into your trust, right? But anyway, so that's one way to do it, right? So the way that I do it, because I already did all the administrative work before I met Kafil. So I was like, well, I already sent them all these letters. So the first letter is the verification. They're supposed to verify, and if they can't, then there's no contract. So, but what debt collectors usually do is they'll send you something, and they'll be like, oh, here goes the contract. But it's actually like just statements. And it's like, that's not a contract. It's not a contract. So I sent it back and I said, hey, this is a notice to cure. This is your second chance to send me a contract that I owe you. And if you can't do that, now I'm going to give you my fee schedule. This is my fee schedule. This is how much I charge if you continue to harass me. This is how much I charge should I appear in court. This is how much I charge should you continue to, because you can also create a private agreement, right? That's not to do with the statute. You make your own rules. You make your own, who am I to say, Eric needs to, charge $200 for a reading. Who am I to say that? You charge what you feel in your heart is right to charge, right?
Right.
For me, I think, for me to appear in court, that's $500,000, because I can be at the beach drinking pina coladas.
No, that's right. Oh my God. Wait. So now this is an important question, because I'm sure my audience would want to know this. What about these college loans?
That's a hoax as well. That's definitely a hoax. So right now I'm actually working with a client, and I'm actually doing what you call kind of like pro bono, because I've never done this before.
Okay.
But I'm doing it free of charge for him, because it's my first time trying to get this student loan off of his credit report.
Right.
And his student loan is a student loan that's very heavy. It was at close to $300,000. Yeah.
Is he going for a MBA law degree or just?
Yeah, he did that.
Oh wow.
He got a master's and an MBA and all. I mean, yeah.
Wow.
So he was gonna pay me, and I said, look, because it's my first time that I'm handling this, let me handle it. I don't feel right charging you because I have yet to experience myself with this.
Right. So it's learning for you as well.
It's learning for me as well. But the way that I see it is this: is all these credit bureaus are all fraudulent, all of them, because you've never even contracted with them. Okay, so you've never
I
actually
wondered about that. It's like,
you've actually never contracted with them. So it's like, so then it goes to what it rings like a little bell in my head, and I'm like, okay, so where are they getting this information from, right? Like, for example, bankruptcy, right? Not to get off the subject, but when you have bankruptcy on your credit report, it says that they got it from the courthouse on your credit report. That's where, I forget what it's called. That's under the furniture is, the bankruptcy court, right? But then if you were to go to the bankruptcy court and send them in a United certified mail return receipt, always return receipt, asking them, hey, how do you let the credit bureaus know, what is the procedure about, letting the credit bureaus know about the bankruptcy case? And you will get a letter back that says, we don't deal with no credit bureaus, and we don't send nothing to the credit bureaus. So therefore, when you go back to the credit bureaus, there is discrepancy. It is misinformation because they're not telling the truth. They actually did not get it from the courthouse because the courthouse never sends it to them. Therefore, it's incorrect and it needs to come down. And if they don't bring it down, you make a whole complaint with the CFPB and the FTC, and you can file 211, which is like whistleblowing on them. You can file a 3949A IRS form.
and this is with any of the student loan people that harass people?
Which is identity theft. Yes, correct. So with the student loan that I'm dealing with right now with this gentleman, I said, like, basically, let me see your entire credit report.
Right.
So there's TransUnion, there's Experian, and there's Equifax, right? Those are the three main ones. So you look at them, and I'm looking at them, and all the three have different numbers of what he owes. And I'm like, that doesn't even make sense.
That's fugazi, yeah. Oh my gosh. Whoa.
Do you know what I'm saying?
You guys, this is why I have her on. See, but this is the stuff that I think, all this sounds good, but it sounds scary and daunting for people.
Yeah.
So, okay, give them the email again, because, people feel pressured, right? It's the same thing. We kind of know the IRS and taxes is illegal, but that's a different monster, because if you don't have the lawyers to fight the IRS, you're done for, right?
Well, okay, so to fight the IRS, you don't really have to fight them, right? There's something called tax avoidance, which is perfectly lawful, and I believe I forget the code, and I can post it up for people if people want to come check me out, or I can give it to you so that you can give it to your people as well.
Yeah.
But there is a CFP code for individuals that want to do tax avoidance, which is be tax exempt. You can do that, right? You can also combat it in a way where you can do an affidavit or record something with the American Assembly, which is the Land Recording Office, and I can send you that information as well. And they also help with status correction, but they also help with this whole tax exemption stuff, where they help you create a letter, and you tell the IRS commissioner that you did not know that only federal agents are supposed to be paying taxes, and that you were unaware, okay, that you were not a ward of any courts, because only they're the only liable ones to have to pay taxes if you're a government official. Last I checked, Safeway, checkout people aren't government officials, right? So why are they paying taxes? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's all a bunch of fraud. It saddens me, because especially when you try to tell people to help them because They cry about, oh my God, all this registration. Oh, my license got suspended. And now I can't drive my car. Are you even getting money for driving your car? No, if you're not, get in there and travel. Like, what is going on with you, and just really knowing your rights, honestly.
So does it benefit you to LLC? Like, let's say if you have an LLC of your business, or does it benefit you to do that and LLC your name?
Yeah, so definitely it's very, very advised to copyright your name and trademark it. Your all caps name. Now, as
So
far
more than LLC, like actually
copyright
copyright and trademark it.
trademark it, correct? Because then you're
Mm.
going to put that into your trust as well.
And
So
that's first, middle, and last name?
yes, your entire name that's on that birth certificate.
Mm.
Right. So then that way, when there's any court things coming in, you are presenting that name, and that name belongs in your trust. That is yours. And you know what I mean? So
So you're making your name a business?
you're making your name yours. Yes, a business in a way, but you're not, how can I say, the only reason that you're using it would be for reasons of like dealing with things in court, because again, court only deals with commercial business dead entities. You know what I
Mm.
mean? So you're there to present on that dead entity, if you will. But you're not. You're now separating yourself. I am not that. That is just what is mine. Does that
Okay.
make sense?
Yeah. Wow. Oh
Yeah.
my God. Okay, so I know my audience is going to have a lot of questions. So, okay, so promise me this. You, I want to, get updates in terms of how you did with this guy and helping him out, but you've got to come back live
Absolutely.
during the summer or early fall, whenever you think, whatever. But you definitely got to come back live, because I know my audience is going to have a ton of live questions for you to ask.
Absolutely.
This is fascinating. So as we close out, just share the best way, for people to contact you and all that stuff. And you're gonna, send everything to me, and we'll have it in the description. But how can they reach Miss Yesenia Rose with all the juicy information?
All the goodies, right? Definitely feel free to give me, send me an email either at hello at freedom codes. So sorry, hello at freedom hyphen codes with an s.com, or on my Instagram on IG at underscore Yesenia, YESENIA underscore Rose, ROSE. Or you can reach me on my YouTube, which is Yesenia Rose Freedom Seekers, which is freedom hyphen and then seekers, SEEKERZ.
Z.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Oh my God.
I would love to come on in the summer. I will have so many updates, because again, I'm
I
actually going to
know.
be in Washington, D.C. Next month.
Okay.
And we're going to be out there with notaries and people with affidavits, because there is a code under the color of law, which is 12 USC 411. And what that is, it talks about, if you were to look that up, it talks about how, federal notes, like a federal note, is supposed to be redeemable for lawful money. And so we're going to be going into the Washington, D.C., District of Columbia or whatever, trying to redeem those notes for lawful money that's owed back to the people. So I'll definitely have an update on that. I've
You're doing this in what, June, July, August, when?
No, I'm doing this next month in
Oh
April.
my gosh. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So then we'll definitely have you back towards the end of the summer. I want updates, and oh my gosh.
Yeah, there's going to be so much going on. I mean, I definitely foresee helping people with creating their own nations, having their own privacy, their own what they can call their own for their family, their legacy,
Yeah.
yeah. So I
And
definitely,
this sounds kind of scary, daunting, and overwhelming for many people.
right.
So coming to speak to Yesenia and asking your honest, pure questions about everything, you guys, is what I would do. So definitely reach out to Yesenia. And oh my God, you bring it, and there's so much knowledge And there's so much. So that's why, and even more. So that's why you've got to come back in the summer, and we'll do it live and get even deeper. So, oh my God, thank you. So see, and that's a true, you got to love it, right? And I was just telling somebody about this the other day, that Leo Pisces connection, right? The Leo sun, it's all about you speaking the authentic truth from your heart chakra. And then the Pisces moon, you said the key words earlier, right? You have the compassion and empathy to really protect not only your family and children, but you want to protect everybody's family and help them, right?
Absolutely. I think of it this way. My kids, I want them to go the right path. And then, when I leave, I want to leave something behind, a legacy that they can always go back to. Even this, recording, for them to go look back and be like, what was mom doing? What was, and then when they have kids, what was grandmama doing?
Yeah, she was
And
handling business.
yeah, and then leaving that knowledge for them to continue to grow on, because I don't want to leave my kids where it's going to be like just crazy and they don't know what's going on, or then their kids don't know what's going on. This is truly just, helping everyone that wants help, that honestly really wants to know about it. Because again, like I mentioned, I can't force anyone. This has to come from your own being, and wanting to know the truth. And the truth sets you free. It really, really does. I've never been so like much.
There's nothing more important than the truth. I love that.
Exactly.
Oh,
So
God.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much.
This was so much fun, and I love your purity of your heart and your intention, and that's what it's all about. And that's why I named my podcast "Knowledge is Love." When you love someone, you keep them in the know. And this was a lot of knowledge today. So thank you so much, Yesenia. This was more than amazing. You guys, thank you so much for watching Miss Yesenia Rose. Reach out to her. Everything will be down below in the description. And just remember, this is why we have the Knowledge is Love Astrology podcast. And you're getting it from our heart as the Leo sun, the Cancer rising, and the Pisces moon. She's bringing that, So, but I know they can't wait to see you live. So,
absolutely,
this was great.
I will be so happy to be back. Thank you so much, Eric, for having me, and thank you to your wife for reaching out to me, because
yes, she can't wait to talk to you and connect with you as well.
Absolutely,
we will definitely do that. So, you guys, thank you for watching, and we will catch you again. This has been episode 320 of my Knowledge is Love Astrology podcast, and this is the amazing Yesenia Rose. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.